Greetings to those who watch below. It's that time of the month again. Time for some truly creepy paranormal experiences. Pictures Turned Face Down by Soup 13. About 5 or 6 years ago, my fiancée and I moved into this teeny tiny little apartment in a town called Sharpsburg, which is a part of the Pittsburgh area. We'd only been living there for about a week when we had our first experience. When I arrived home from work one day, I noticed that the pictures I had placed on top of our entertainment stand were all laying face down. I asked my fiancé why he would do such a thing, and he said that he didn't do it and hadn't noticed the pictures until I mentioned something. He's normally a prankster, so I just assumed that he was messing with me. I put the pictures back in their place and thought nothing of it. Mind you, there were also little trinkets in the same area as the pictures, and they were untouched, so that was even more reassuring that a prank was being pulled on me. The same night, around 6, we were going to his mother's house to do our laundry. We were at her house until about 10 p.m, and on the way home, I said something like, "Wouldn't it be so scary if those pictures were face down again?" I was the first to walk in the apartment, and the entertainment stand was directly in view as soon as you walk in. Yes, the pictures were all face down again. I ran out of there crying and shaking before he could even get in the house. He was in total disbelief until he walked over to where the pictures were and saw them. Nothing around these pictures, like the candles and other little trinkets, were touched. The wind couldn't have done this. A vibration couldn't have done this. Only a person could. Our apartment was double locked while we were gone, and it was on the second floor, so nobody could have broken in. Needless to say, it was an extremely creepy experience. Although I've had many experiences with the supernatural, this was the most straightforward attempt from a ghost that I have ever seen. The pictures remained untouched after this. I told the ghost that he or she needs to leave my stuff alone, and that they no longer live there. But the ghost likes to mess with my food now. I would constantly find food that was in the cupboards thrown into the middle of the kitchen floor. Again, I had to tell this person to leave my food alone. It was almost comical at this point. It seemed that all I had to do was tell them to leave my stuff alone and they would, but would also continue to test me to see what they could and could not have. To this day, my husband claims that he doesn't believe in ghosts, but I think he does. We now live in his deceased grandmother's home, and he sometimes tells me that he sees and hears things. Sat on and Choked by Something Unseen by lilpeachyghost. This experience happened around 5 or 6 years ago. I was in a pretty bad place in my life and struggling with some things, mainly my religion and my love life. The two didn't mesh well, and I was stuck between wanting to be a perfect disciple, if you will, and the need to be completely and utterly myself. I left my religion and came out of the closet some years later. Anyway, around early evening when the sun was just starting to dip down below the horizon, I had a weird sensation of being sat on and held down while I was propped up in bed reading. The pressure was incredibly heavy on my chest, and I began to feel anxious and got a horrible sense of dread, like something bad was going to happen or was currently happening. I then felt the sensation of being choked. I know through this whole experience that I wasn't dreaming, and I wasn't having sleep paralysis, because I was awake and aware the entire time, and I was able to move my arm to be able to call a friend to pray over with me. I didn't know what else to do, and it seemed to do the trick. As soon as my friend began praying, I felt whatever it was physically snap away from me very quickly and flee. The energy in the room lifted, and it seemed as though the room became brighter. I was obviously quite shaken up, and had to leave the house for a while. At that time of day there wasn't very many places to go, so I chilled out in my backyard until it got too cold, and then slept on the sofa with the light and TV turned on. It's the only negative experience I've ever had in this house, and the only time I've ever feared for my life. Could this have been something to do with my own feelings, and could I have called to, or unintentionally manifested this thing myself? Demon, or my unconsciousness? The Piano Plays On by Kevan. There is a small town near Dora that's called Old Dora, mainly because back in the day it was the place to be, complete with stores, a library, a Methodist church, and even a train station. Over the years, though, people began to build buildings farther away from it, and eventually it became run down and abandoned. Over the course of the last 30 years, buildings have been torn down, if they haven't already collapsed, and only a handful of places remain, including the Methodist church, train station, library, and the old furniture store. The concrete wall supporting the railroad tracks is now a giant mural, covered in spray-painted artwork from years past and years present. Even me and my friends who claim Old Dora for ourselves have left our mark there. Most of the time we go up there at night and go into some of the old buildings, try and make contact with spirits who either visited or worked there. Well, the church had always been locked, and there was no way to possibly get in without breaking in. I wasn't about to break into a church. One night, we and my friends were doing our usual rounds, and that's when we noticed the door was standing open at the bottom floor. I looked at my watch. It was 11:37 p.m, and everyone was talking about finally getting to go inside the church. I felt a little bad about going in. It was just some weird feeling in the pit of my stomach. But eventually we walked inside. A bunch of debris lay scattered everywhere, and the bottom floor was huge. I walked around a little bit and noticed an old piano leaned against the back wall. I played a short tune on it. Then my friend noticed the stairs going up to the top floor. I walked over to the group, consisting of 4 people including myself, and we started to go up the rounding stairs. Suddenly, from up there, another piano began to play, and play well. But we freaked out and got out of there. The next night we decided to go back. We thought maybe someone had broken in, and when they heard us down there they tried to scare us away. So we walked back to the church, the clock nearing midnight. The door was now closed. We walked over and tried it, and found it was unlocked. So we walked inside and started back toward the steps. We stopped there for a moment and gazed up at them, twisting upwards so that you couldn't see what was up there. My friend walked over to the other piano that was near the back wall and played a short tune. He stopped and we listened for a moment. Nothing happened, so we decided to go on up. We got to where the stairs twist, and then soft piano music began to play. 2 of my friends ran back down, but me and Sean continued on. We found the piano. It was a large black grand piano, sitting against the wall nearest the stairs. No one was there. I stared down in horror to see the keys being pressed down by invisible hands. Me and Sean left when we saw that. We stopped out on the street, and the piano music echoed out onto it as we began to walk away. Until this day, we can't explain what was going on, but sometimes, when you walk up by Old Dora around midnight, you can hear soft piano music coming from the old church. Slapped by an Unseen Hand by Rajine. Around 2 weeks ago, I was in bed at night after texting some of my friends. I put my phone aside and closed my eyes to try and fall asleep. I'm laying in bed on my stomach, fully awake and aware of everything around me. It's just that my eyes are closed. When out of nowhere, I get a hard slap on the back of my leg on my calf muscle. Thinking that perhaps it was my mother who had done it in a maybe joking sort of way, the stinging sensation of the slap remained on my leg for around 2 minutes. I know for a fact that I wasn't dreaming, and I do remember even hearing the slapping sound as well. I was fully awake when it happened, as I take a while before I actually fall asleep. The next day, I told my mother what had happened to me the previous night, and she advised me that the same thing had happened to her just days before, and that I must not put any attention into it. My mother believes that if you keep thinking about stuff like that, you're inviting it into your personal space and your life. The night after the slap incident, I had this terrible dream that something came through my bedroom window and tried to make me go with it, and when I refused it got angry and started grabbing onto me. This evil entity felt like a female. I'm not sure why I felt like it did, but I remember praying and asking for protection, and that thing, or whatever it was telling me that my prayers wouldn't help, at which point I got angry and started punching it. But it was such an intense dream that I woke up with a shock and my fists clenched. Black Hand by Jeani. Years ago, for Christmas, I had asked Santa Claus for a pair of little girl high-heel shoes. They were all the rage. I remember daydreaming about how wonderful it would be to have such shoes. I'd look so great and it'd be so much fun. I was so excited and couldn't wait for Christmas. Finally, Christmas Eve rolled round. That night I could hardly sleep, but I knew I had to, or Santa wouldn't come to our house. Morning came at last. I jumped out of bed and ran to our Christmas tree. Santa bought me the most beautiful pink plastic high heels anyone had ever seen. I put them on my feet and started parading around the room. I was so happy. My mum had gone to the kitchen to start breakfast. I decided to walk to the kitchen so my mum could bask in the loveliness of my shoes. Just as I get to the doorway, I notice this black arm that comes out of the door frame. I am walking very fast, so I can't really stop, and I walk straight through the black arm that was stretched out across the doorway. I'm so scared that I stumble and fall, breaking the heel of one of my new shoes. I'm terrified and crying. I cry not just because I've broken my shoes, but what was the thing I had just seen? I tell my mum about it, but she had no idea what to say. The horrific experience faded away with the years, and several Christmases come and go. But what's even stranger is that I see this black arm once more. This time I'm about 12 years old. My brother, sister and I are laying on our blanket under a lovely shade tree. We're discussing God and I'm preaching my little heart out. All of a sudden, the black arm reaches up from the ground and comes around me. I scream and get away from it quickly. I tell my mother of the black arm. She says a prayer with me and calms me down. That night, and several nights afterwards, I slept with my sister. These two incidents happened to me years ago, but I remember them as if they happened yesterday. I don't know what this was, or if anyone else has ever seen this black arm. All I know is that it happened to me. Hi guys, thank you ever so much for watching today's video. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, make sure you like, share, comment and subscribe to the channel, hitting that notification bell. Also, you can become a member of Those Who Dwell Below. If you do so, you will get a shout out at the end of every single video, and also access to all videos 24 hours before they go public. If you have a topic that you'd like us to discuss, or even a favourite creepypasta that you'd like me to read, make sure you let me know. All the ways to contact me are down in the description box. So, until next time, sleep tight.